Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Coaching Uncovered podcast. My name is Chris Berry, and I'm going to be your host for today. Joining us, we have Chris Dawson. Chris, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Enjoying my Wednesday morning and excited
Good.
to go ahead and chat a little bit more about coaching businesses and everything that you're doing. So before we, jump in meat and potatoes, kind of day-to-day details and stuff, could you just give everyone listening or watching a brief overview what you help people with?
Yeah, so I work with leadership teams at small to mid-sized businesses. And the short answer that I like to give is I help them combat organizational terrorism and quiet quitting, because that's a great way to get people's attention. Um, but the way we do that is by measuring how well they are meeting the 7 critical needs that every employee has to have met in order to do great work and love their work and thrive and all of that stuff. We measure that with a survey, and then we review the results, identify what they're doing well that maybe they could do even more of, and areas where their kind of business operating system, their day-to-day habits, the things that they've always been doing, where they're missing the mark, right?
Mm.
Areas where they're causing their own people to be frustrated or disillusioned or angry or whatever it is that is getting in their way of doing really great work. And then we talk about how can we fix that, right? So that's the overall what we do. And then that process reiterates. So we survey again in 6 months. We see if the plan we came up with is moving the needle in the right direction. And if so, we can maybe move on to the next issue. And if not, then why not? And what do we need to do to adjust so that we really can put everybody in a position where they can thrive?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
obviously it's what companies are built on,
Yes.
obviously
Yeah.
early stages of companies. Yeah, it's maybe the founder or whoever it is, kind of a small team putting it together. But we know that as companies really seek to grow, it's exactly that, making sure that
Yeah.
it's built upon the individuals and everything is functioning properly. So
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
One
And
question I did have.
how do you systemize it so that it's not just the leadership every day sort of scrambling and relying on their own memory and their own efforts to take care of everyone? Like, how do we put in place a system um, and gain momentum and so that it kind of starts taking care of itself to a certain extent?
Mhm. And people that you work with, I know we were chatting a little bit on the previous call, but just so everyone's
Mhm.
listening, what size of businesses do you guys typically work with? What does that look like?
Yeah, our wheelhouse is like 50 to 500 employees. We have some clients that are smaller than 50, probably 20 is kind of the smallest. And then my biggest client right now is about 800, but my partners have worked with even bigger clients, as large as about 10,000. But that was kind of a one-time really cool opportunity, not the norm.
Yeah. And the reason I ask, aside from the factors, everyone listening kind of getting a better understanding of your business, do
Yeah.
you notice that you say the 50 to 500? I mean, at that point, we probably are past the period of the founders feeling like they need to essentially stranglehold and hold on to everything tight, or
Yeah.
is that even something that you're even seeing still at, let's call it the 50 to 100? They're still just like feel like they need to have control of everything.
Yeah. And I think you see that in founders and CEOs at even really big companies,
Hmm.
and it is almost always a bad thing, right? A bad thing for them personally, because you're going to run yourself ragged trying to do that, but also it's a terrible way to build buy-in and engagement, right? People are there because they want to have responsibilities. They want to be able to implement their own ideas. They want to be trusted to do things. And when a founder or even maybe a level of management down micromanages and refuses to let go, that's not what people want, right? They want to be trusted, they want ownership, they want to be able to take initiative, and they want to be able to do that with always having to ask permission, or constantly being overruled, right? So yeah, we see that, but the bigger it gets, you're absolutely right, right? The bigger a company gets, the more most founders start to realize, like, this is unsustainable. I cannot be in charge of making all the decisions here. And we help them. Yeah, that's a huge part of what's attractive for the CEOs and owners we work with is giving them more freedom to do the things they're good at and to do the things they're passionate about doing, because they're not spending all their time solving other people's problems, answering questions, putting out fires. They've empowered other people to do that.
Mm, I like it.
Yeah.
So what made you get into this space? How did you get involved?
Yeah, so I've been coaching business leaders for 2 years, but before that, I spent 17 years coaching high school kids. I was a high school English teacher and football coach, and I actually coached basketball also for 10 years. I was the head coach at my alma mater, Broughton High School in Raleigh, North Carolina, for the last 7 years of my coaching career. Um, and I got into coaching kids in part because I played sports my whole life, including football all the way through college at Tulane University. But really, and this is important because it connects to everything I've done since then. I read a book my senior year of college called Season of Life. My uncle sent it to me, and it's about two coaches in Baltimore, Maryland, Joe Ehrman and Biff Poggi. Biff is now the head coach at UNC Charlotte. He went from high school to the University of Michigan to he's had a really interesting career path that not many high school coaches have. And then Joe played in the NFL for 13 years, and then started at Ronald McDonald's House in Baltimore after his little brother passed away from cancer, and he was a minister of a church, and he was working at he had started a shelter slash kind of community center for battered women and children, and then it kind of grew to do all these sort of services in the community in a really rough part of Baltimore. And he was doing all these things, gang intervention stuff to address all the violence and drug use in the area, drug rehab stuff, helping people get GEDs so that, they could have a diploma, job training, all this stuff. And he realized that what was at the root of a lot of these symptoms that he was trying to treat was that the boys and men in that community were being fed a very damaging, destructive definition of masculinity, which is built around dominating other people and proving your manhood by taking advantage of other people. And it was all about your possessions, and all of the women you surround yourself, the car, the clothes, all of this stuff. And the things that the boys and men in that community were doing to try to get all that stuff involved hurting a lot of other people. So he came up with this vision of masculinity that he called authentic masculinity, which was built around empathy for others and relationship and service to others, and measuring your strength by what you're doing for other people, not by taking advantage of other people. And he called it building men for others. And he then got invited by the other coach, Biff, to help out at the school Gilman, where I was for 10 years, as the defensive coordinator. And Joe said, I'll do it on the condition that we can build this building men for others framework into what we do with the kids. And they did it, and it was wildly successful. And a book was written about it that became a New York Times bestseller. That was the book I read. HBO, did a Real Sports about it, and he became this kind of nationally and internationally renowned speaker and thought leader, and he works with all the teams in the NFL every year. Anyway, I was captivated by that. I thought, this is what sports should be all about. And I didn't really, going through college, I had no idea what I wanted to do after college. But because of that book and some other things that happened, there's a long story involving Hurricane Katrina, which was my senior year at Tulane. And the team had to relocate to Louisiana Tech. And I actually ended up getting to meet Joe Ehrman there. He came and spoke. This was after I read the book, and all these things happened. And I ended up getting a teaching and coaching job at his school the next fall. And I tell you all of that because that's what kind of lit the fire in me for teaching and coaching. And I've always seen coaching as a vehicle to help people take the skills that are required to be a great athlete, a great teammate, a great captain, or in the workspace, a great teammate, a great worker, a great manager, a great supervisor, a great boss, great owner, and translate that to life and having an even greater impact on your family, your friends, your community. And I used to always talk with and I'll wrap this up. I know I've been going on for a while, but I used to always talk to my players about, if you can learn to be a great teammate, which involves putting the needs of the group ahead of your own needs. It means taking responsibility for everything you do and the impact that has on the team and the game and all that stuff. It means being willing to sacrifice so that you can really invest the work required to become a great athlete and to master your position and all of these things. Then you will also be able to go on to be a great husband and a great father and a great boss and really make a difference in your community. So I did that for 17 years. Well, now it's not about what you will do when you grow up. I'm working with grownups. So, how can you, if you're the owner of this company or if you're on the leadership team, you're in charge here, how can you lead in such a way that you are making these people's lives better, right? Like how are you creating an environment where not only can they make enough money to take care of their family, but they go home and they are feeling invigorated and great about their work, and they're not up late at night worrying and overcome with anxiety about what's going to happen the next day at work, and not feeling safe at work, being uncertain about what their status is there, doing stuff that they hate doing. And they're just, that is going to carry over. Not only is that going to hurt their production and engagement at work, which is a boss is your first priority, but it's going to take away from their ability to be a great mom or a great wife or a great dad or husband or friend, or just, a positive force in their community. So yeah, it's been a fun transition. Coaching adults is very much like coaching kids. I mean, people are people. It's hard to get a kid to sacrifice for the team, and it's hard to get an adult to sacrifice for the team. But it is really rewarding when you get a group of people who are all willing to put the team first. That's when really cool stuff happens. So,
Absolutely.
long answer to a short question.
No, it's all good. It's super cool hearing the entire process and journey because it makes sense now, right? Of like
Yeah,
how you came, your background, how you got involved in the coaching space at the very beginning, right? Because you've been coaching for a long time.
yeah,
In this specific endeavor of business coaching, 2 years, but we're talking a much larger scale and everything like that.
yeah,
And on that last point that you made, I find it so interesting because, as you work with different coaching programs and thousands of clients, that's the biggest thing I came to realize. And primarily, I'd say from my first experience inside of the coaching world of running the operations for a sales coaching business, I came to realize that 18-year-old kid that has the insecurities and the limiting beliefs inside, it's the same exact thing that the 40-year-old man, 50-year-old
yeah,
man, whatever it is, they still have it. Because don't think that 20 years, 30 years of sweeping it under the rug is going to do anything,
yeah,
And that's the craziest part, because even sometimes it can be yes, they might have more understanding of how the world works and more of an open mind, but in the same sense, it's also like 20 years of thinking this
yeah,
way or whatever it is
yeah,
too. So it's interesting how all of that works.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
So obviously been a coach for a while, transitioned into
Yeah.
the business coaching 2 years ago, doing all this stuff, specifically on the last 2 years in the business realm. What have been some of the, we'll say, favorite parts, highlights, and
Yeah.
then what have been some of the biggest challenges as well that you've experienced over the past 2 years of, being the business coach and helping people do these things that you've been describing?
Yeah. In terms of highlights, let me start with my favorite parts of like the time I spend working with clients, and then I'll move on to like our evolution, because we're a startup and things are going well, so that's exciting too. But I think my favorite part of working with clients, and I'm lucky to have a lot of people that come to us who already believe in the importance of taking care of their employees, right? And that's something they want to do. I don't have to sell them on the idea that you need to take care of your people. Now, there's a lot of business owners who don't really prioritize that, but I haven't gotten a lot of them coming to us. And so the highlight is after we give the survey to all of their people and we get the results and I create a report, it's that what we call our action plan meeting, which is usually about 3 hours, where we dig into the feedback. And it's working with people who appreciate that feedback, right? Who can get past, and this is natural. I don't think you can prevent the initial reaction of getting your feelings hurt when people say, I don't like this part about your company, right? When it's your baby, your first reaction is get your feelings hurt and then be defensive, like, well, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. I tell everybody that's natural to feel that way. But being able to have the self-awareness to move beyond that and say, no, I need this feedback. I want this feedback. And I might have only gotten this in 2 or 3 comments, but it's possible that everybody feels this way at the company. And so I'm really, people who really appreciate and want critical feedback because they know it's the only way to keep growing and improving the company. So that's really satisfying. And then working with them to figure out, okay, well, we've got 20 different problems that people brought up. Which is the one problem that we want to attack right now, right? And prioritizing and that and strategizing, that part is really fun. So that's a highlight. I would say the highlight of this process over the last 2 years, because I spent the first 6 months just figuring out, not to get, I don't want to go into the weeds on this, but my partner, who's also my boss, came up with this framework and this survey almost 10 years ago, but he'd only been doing it with his clients, right? He's a coach as well. And he brought me on to figure out how can we get everybody should be doing this. And my first 6 months was just figuring out, well, what is this? Like, what is the standard, the proven process? What are we offering? What are the steps we're going to take our clients through? And so now we've been doing it for a year and a half. And what's been exciting is just seeing people come back, right? And saying, yeah, this works. We want to pay to do this again, and then getting referrals, right? Hey, I'm sending you this email because I'm in a CEO mastermind group with this other person, and the topic of employee engagement came up, and they said, God, we've been doing this thing with Bite 7. You've got to do it with them, right? And then, so that's been exciting. It's been gratifying, and just to get having more and more people wanting to use it is really cool.
Yeah. So getting people coming back, getting the wins, and then
Yeah,
obviously having that sort of impact, like you said, sometimes people get a little defensive, but it's like, oh, wow. Because then
yeah,
actually have the understanding of like, okay, this is the whole of my business. This is the thing that I need to change.
yeah,
So that's kind of like
yeah.
the highlight, let's call it the favorite part. On the flip side of things, what have been some of the most challenging aspects of the past 2 years, would you say?
I think the most challenging thing is just growing the sales funnel, which I think is a big part of what you're doing, right? In this community is helping, getting people together and putting their heads together to think about what's the best way to do it. I have relied pretty heavily on Walt, who's Bite 7 is his baby. He brought me on to help him.
Yeah.
He is a really um, influential person in the EOS community, which is the Entrepreneurial Operating System. He was the third or fourth implementer. There's now close to 900 of them around the world, but he was like number three.
Yeah.
That Gino Wickman, who invented EOS, he's the guy who wrote Traction, brought in and trained. And so Walt has a really, people come to Walt all the time. Hey, how do you deal with this issue? How do you deal with that issue? What are you thinking? And so that's been a great, he just says, hey, sounds like a good time in your journey with your client to implement this survey and the system. And he just sends them to me and I run from there. Right. And
Mm.
that's been really easy for me
Mm.
because I
Yeah.
just sit there and catch what he throws my way.
Yeah.
And we've had a really high conversion rate because those people already believe in Walt. And I don't have to do anything to kind of like build credibility. It's like, oh, well, Walt told me I needed to do this and I'm coming to you. So that's been really a really easy part of my job,
Mm.
but we're really trying to grow outside of EOS as well.
Mm.
Um, and so just figuring out, gosh, how do we get people to bite at this? Do we need to offer something for free? Do we need to start running webinars? Do we need to go to conferences? I'm going to a big conference next week, but like just figuring that out. And then, you know, and then when we get busy, it's like keeping track of everything, making sure that I'm starting, I've got all these people that want to start surveys on XYZ day, making sure the reminders are going out, making sure the survey is going out, making sure, and so that when we get busy, that can be a little bit of a challenge. And that's not the fun part of the job, right? The fun part of the job is the actual coaching. The not fun part is the kind of administrative work that it takes to make sure all the trains are running on time, so to speak. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Absolutely.
there's a lot of challenges. That's a big one. I don't have a background in sales or business development. So, on the one hand, sales comes naturally in the sense that I've always had to sell students on the value of this class. That's why, I'm selling them on this is why it's important to learn English literature, right? Or to know
Mm.
how to write well, to know how to read well,
Mm.
or selling players on buying into a team. But I have never sold to other businesses, right? I haven't sold in that kind of way. And so learning how to do business development and sales has been a big learning curve. It's been fun. I've had the tremendous gift. One of the best things that Walt has done for me is he has provided me with a coach that I check in with once every other week, who is an expert in sales and um, really kind of all things business, but particularly sales. And he's
Mm.
really helped me learn best practices, grow, learn how to do, a much better. What I struggled with at first was just the follow through, right? I'd have a great conversation with someone and I'd be excited, and then I wouldn't build into my calendar or HubSpot, whatever it is, reminders to follow up with that person. And so we'd have this great conversation and then nothing would come out of it. And 6 months later, I'd be like, oh, totally forgot about that. So that's been something that I've got a lot better at. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
One thing you mentioned was kind of essentially building out content, whether it be a webinar, going to conferences, stuff like that. Are you guys currently doing anything as of that right now, or is it just the fact of more the EOS ecosystem?
Yeah, going to a conference next week that is like EOS tangential, but it's not EOS. It's
Mm.
actually it's called the FEM Summit, which stands for Female Executive Masterminds. And there'll be a couple hundred folks at this conference. That's a really cool community. A woman named Christy Clayton started, and she's kind of running this thing. So I'm excited about that. We go to the EOS conference. Um, we'll probably try to do more of that. A really good place for us to generate leads and clients has been any kind of um, owner, CEO groups. The
Mm.
one that we've done the most of is Vistage, I think,
Oh.
which is the world's largest type of CEO group. And so I have my calendar, because they, what I've learned from these people is they schedule their speakers like a year out. So um, I have a lot of opportunities in 2025 to go get in front of these groups. You've got 12 owners in a room. So you're selling directly to the people who can buy from you.
Mm.
It's not the COO or the HR who has to then go ask the owner if they can do this. It is those people. You get 90 minutes, couple hours, even 3 hours, which is too long, but that's kind of the standard Vistage slot is 3 hours, and you get to show them this is what. Well, I guess you start by saying, what are the pain points, right? Let's talk about what is hard for you, what is causing you headaches, what do you worry about, and then showing them that this framework, this system, these set of tools are a great way to solve those problems.
Mm.
Um, so that's a really good spot for us.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I like it. So going obviously with all the stuff Walt has been continuing to grow out within these conferences, Vistage, possibly building other content. So let's say you use these mediums to go ahead and get someone in. Let's just even maybe talk about historically, primarily like with Walt and everything like that.
Yeah,
I know you said that, sales, and it's funny you say that because even us meeting, yeah, obviously we haven't known each other for a while, but the way you present
yeah,
yourself, very communicative, very solid and all that stuff. So I would honestly anticipate you more of like being very solid at sales. And the funny part is that even as you said, to me, because sales is my background, sales is how I
yeah,
got into the coaching
yeah,
space. Sales is everything, and
yeah,
even as you mentioned, like selling kids on like why they need to do this, or
yeah,
selling the people on your team, right? The students that you're working with. Here's why you need to go ahead and be bought into this. And same exact thing that you guys are doing now, like getting
yeah,
buy-in from
yeah.
employees and everything like that. So sales is everything.
It
So
is. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
coming back to the question I was going to ask though. So let's say you get the leads, whether it be from these new ways or whether it be Walt, right, previously, and
Yeah.
even ongoing. You get them in, you get on the conversation with them. One of the biggest things that a lot of coaches face is actually even a video training I literally did yesterday. Is the title of the training was how to sell without being slimy, right? And the
Yeah.
whole thing is like leading with value and all that sort of stuff. And that's one of the biggest and hardest parts, even as you said, of like a lot of these coaches, they're so passionate about what they do. We want to help people. We want to guide people to get this outcome. That's what they love doing. But then the admin side of it, like, okay, following up, doing all
Yeah.
these different things. It's like, that's one of their biggest challenges,
Yeah.
even as you kind of said too. So coming to the question now, you've got the person on a call from whatever source it is. How do you go ahead and convert that person into someone that's interested to some degree into an actual paying client? What are some of the best practices you do? What's the conversation look like?
Yeah. So we offer after that kind of first point of contact, a discovery call. I like to get somebody uh, on a Zoom and kind of be able to show them a little bit what our product looks like. Hey, here's what a report looks like. Here's how you can compare divisions, departments. You can compare employees engagement by tenure, all that stuff. And they're like, oh, that's pretty cool. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, why don't hey, we offer a free 90-minute meeting. We call it our first bite.
Mm-hmm.
Um, would love to take your leadership team through that 90-minute meeting. Absolutely no commitment required. And even if you decide not to move forward, you're going to get some great nuggets out of that you could implement tomorrow. Right. And so that has worked well for us. Not everybody, obviously not every lead um, converts into the first bite meeting for us,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot do. And from there, we have a really high conversion rate to then saying, hey, okay, we'll pay for the survey. And we offer what we call our concierge service that is the coaching that goes with the survey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think a really important, so you mentioned sales and how do you sell without being slimy and all of that stuff. One of the really important things I learned from Walt and also from my coach Greg is um, people want to buy, but they don't want to be sold. So just ask questions and let them sort of talk themselves into a place where they realize, yeah, this is for me, right? And
Mhm.
so it's a 90-minute meeting. I spend 20, 25 minutes at the beginning explaining this is what we do, how we do it, and why we do it, and what you should expect to get from this. But
Mhm.
the next hour is me asking questions and having them. That's why I like to do it with a team as opposed to just the business owner,
Mhm.
is generating discussion. And really what I just take them through the 7 critical needs that we've identified, which is to belong, to believe, to be accountable, to be measured, to be heard, to be developed, to be balanced. And I say, okay, belonging, for instance, is really all about core values. So I'll say, well,
Mhm.
how well have you guys defined your core values, articulated your core values? And that's kind of the easy part. The hard part, how well do you model the core values? How well do you integrate them into everything you do? Do you reward people for living out the core values? Can you hire and fire based on core values? And then I just say, how well do you do that? And then they talk to each other, and they see, yeah, we do this well, but gosh, there's some areas where we could do better. And then we go through each of the 7 needs that way. And by the end, they have uncovered a lot of the things that they think they can improve upon.
Mhm.
Um, and I say, that's great. And we've got a tool that's going to really help you with that.
Mhm.
So that is, and then the next step is just, hey, let's run the survey. And at that point, they're a paying client. And then we show them and then we just go through the proven process at that point, which is run the survey. Here's the report, action plan meeting. And then I check in with them over the next 6 months to make sure they're implementing the plan and see if I can
Mhm.
help in any way. And then
Mhm.
6 months later, we survey again, and then it just repeats. Of course, they want to take the survey again to see if it's if it's working or not, right?
Of course.
Um, and then this is the last thing, and this is not answering this is not really the question, but eventually we say, hey, we've coached you through this process a few times, and you've paid for the coaching. It's simple. Do you want to just from now on, do you want to just pay for the survey, and I'll run the survey and send you a report, and you can do the action plan meeting on your own? Okay, and
Mhm.
at which cost it's not a very the financial investment at this point is minimal, but you're still
Mhm.
going to want a time investment to get stuff out of it. Or do you really value the coaching? And a lot of people just want to have a third party come in and run it, because they really appreciate having an outsider's perspective, right? But anyway, there's kind of 2 paths they can take at that point. So a really long answer to your question, but the short version is get them into the free 90-minute meeting, right?
Mhm.
Because there's not much fear or apprehension around that because they're not having to commit to anything other than finding the time.
Mhm.
And then once they're in and we have a great 90-minute class discussion, I mean, that's where I go back to my 17 years of being an English teacher. I'm just running a class now, and I'm facilitating a class discussion, right? And
Mhm.
so I have a ton of experience doing that and knowing what questions to ask and knowing when to shut up and just let them talk. And so, yeah, that's the deal. Get them into the free
Yeah.
90-minute meeting.
Yeah. Well, the thing I liked about it, I want to make sure I'm following. You
Yeah.
get them into that free 90-minute meeting, and then you also offer a free survey too, which you said that you guys incur that cost, which then further gets them down the funnel. Did I understand that correctly? That first survey or no?
No, not exactly.
Okay.
When we first started, we were giving everything away for free and then
Mm.
saying, once you come back, you start paying.
Okay.
Now we're asking them to go ahead and pay for the survey.
Okay.
Um, I
From that
will say
90-minute meeting.
this. As we think about long-term big picture, there may be a time where we go back to giving, it might just be that the base model of our survey
Mhm.
is free. And then if you
Yeah.
want to kind of upgrade and pay for the ability to compare departments or do it by manager, then you pay a little bit. You pay not a prohibitive cost, but you pay some for that. And really what we are generating our revenue is just the coaching piece and letting the survey be free. Right now we're saying to even get started past that intro meeting, you need to pay for the survey. But everybody's been saying yes. So
Yeah.
yeah, or
So
almost everybody.
yeah. So understanding now that it used to be free, now you guys are actually charging upfront for it, which makes sense.
Yeah,
The survey itself, what do you guys charge for? And then the coach, because the real money is more on the coaching on the back end, I'm assuming, correct?
it is. It is.
Okay.
We charge based on headcount, right? So we're charging if you're up to 50 employees, is $500 for a 12-month subscription, which we would
Mm.
encourage you to survey twice in 12 months, where every 6 months is what we think is best. For most companies, there are times where I would say, no, given the plan that we're trying to implement and the time it's going to take, let's wait a year because we don't want to survey your employees before they've been able to see any of the changes you're making. But up to 100 employees is $1,000 for 1 year. Up to 200 is $2,000. So we kind of go up that way,
Mm.
which is really reasonable compared to a lot of our clients are also taking DISC assessments and Colby assessments, and those things are way more expensive than what we're offering. So we've gotten zero pushback on the price of the surveys.
Mm-hmm.
But you think about long term, part of the thought is, okay, if they, after a year or 2 years of the coaching, they just want to run the survey and they're going to do it forever, they build it into their budget, then that's easy for us. Setting up a survey is a minimal time commitment. So let's have them pay for the survey just so we get that recurring revenue that involves very little work. But you're right that what we charge for the what we call our concierge service is considerably more than that, and that is in part because it is way more time and effort on my end, but also that's where the real value is me facilitating that kind of discovery and conversation around the survey results, and then helping them decide what is the next step.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it, right? I'm like, we're not leaving this meeting until we agree on the next step.
Yep.
And then I check in a week later and say, have we taken the next step, right? Yeah, that didn't answer your question entirely, but yeah,
No.
the survey is not a big cost. Most of the revenue is coming from the coaching.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah,
So kind of summarizing the sales process then of what you guys are doing, it's giving value, right? Getting
yeah,
them hooked onto it with that, free 90-minute session. And
yeah,
then from then it's such a nominal price. I mean, we're talking a company that has 50 employees, $500, like it's
it's
so
nothing.
nominal that it doesn't even
Yeah,
matter.
yeah,
So
yeah,
then you're getting them more bought in of
yeah,
like, yeah, that's really good. Cause all of it is really leading your funnel down to the coaching at the very end, right?
yeah,
That's a
yep,
high ticket. That's where your guys' real revenue generator is. So
yeah,
you're just slowly but sure, like, hey, let's get on this one. Okay, let's get on this one. Let's get on
yeah,
this one. And now at the end, they're so far deep and everything. They're all tied in. They're like, okay,
yeah.
like, I got to do this, like almost psychologically. Like I've come this far. I
We can't
might as
stop
well be
now.
making.
Exactly. Yeah, I can't stop now. I got to see what happens, right?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Okay, nice. So you have all of that. And I know that we only have a couple more minutes before
Yeah,
we got to go ahead and start wrapping up. Kind of getting just to the very last aspect of it. Coach, a client comes in for you. They start working. You obviously have the 6-month typically intervals and stuff like that. What are some of the best practices that you guys implement or do in order to keep clients coming back, to keep them happy and wanting to buy more from you?
yeah. The biggest thing that you already mentioned is just provide value. So when they see that, boy, what a great meeting. We uncovered all these kind of blind spots we had, and we've discovered what is frustrating our people, and now we have a plan to fix them. Well, the biggest thing at that point is 6 months later, showing them that what the steps they've taken have actually made a difference, right? And we show them that through the new survey score, which should go up. It doesn't always, and there's a lot of sometimes that factors outside of their control, and sometimes they just don't do what they had agreed to do. But typically we're going to see that survey score go up overall, but especially in that one area we were trying to fix. But they should also be feeling it at work every day, right? Like, gosh, this feels a lot better. I'm not spending so much time doing other people's jobs because we've done a much better job clarifying what people are accountable for and who they should go to for certain problems, blah, 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 or whatever it is. So that's the big thing, is showing them that it works. But I also think there's a lot you can do just in terms of calling once a month or every other month and just saying, hey, how's it going? What can I do to help? Right? Is there anything I can do to help? And just like, this is from EOS, one of their core values is help first, right? Like, just starting every conversation, how can I help? People really appreciate that. No one gets pissed off by someone asking them how they can help, or no one feels like you are being too pushy or transactional. If really what the conversation is about is how can I help you, right? So that's a big part. And then just reminding them, hey, it's time to take the survey again. If you don't remind them, they might forget. So, hey, we're a month away, time to get ready for that next survey. How are things going? So I just think that's a big part of it. And listen, if you can remember, like, hey, you were going to go on this trip with your wife to, South Africa. How did that go? Or your kid was playing. I remember you were about to go see your daughter play in the volleyball game. How did it go? That is a really nice touch as well.
It shows the person that they're much more than just a dollar sign.
Yeah.
On the other side of the call.
Yeah.
Like it. Well, this has been great. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. For anybody who is interested in either connecting more with you because they really resonated what you said, maybe they're like, wow, by 7, I have a business and I want to go ahead and help improve, everything that you've been describing.
Yeah.
What is the best way for them to go ahead and get in contact with you?
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn, but I think my preferred way is just email, right? So it's Chris, CHRIS at bite7.com, which is just BITE7.com.
Cool. I like it. Well, Chris, once again, it's been great having you on, and I look forward to chatting more.
You too, Chris. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. So everyone, I hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Coaching Uncovered podcast as much as I did. Biggest takeaways for me, 2 things. Number 1, the soft skills, right? So yes, Chris went ahead and has been in this business realm for 2 years. He had 17 years of, being a teacher, being a coach and everything. And a lot of times people, they think that, oh, I'm brand new into coaching and I don't know if this is going to necessarily be me and what I can go ahead and do. But you have to also remember that all the skills that you learned, even at the last part that Chris was talking about, like I'm essentially facilitating a discussion, but now he's talking with, a CEO or whoever it is, an entire team. So don't necessarily downplay the other skills that you have. How can you lean into those, what you're really good at, and leverage that in your business? That's one of the big takeaways that I took away. The second one is getting them down the funnel, right? Chris was talking about a sales process. Okay, let's go ahead and just have a call. Oh, let's get in a 90-minute. Okay, yeah, look, it's only $500 or $1,000 for the survey. Just do that. And then now they get to the end and they're like, okay, like if I really spent this much time and this much effort, like I might as well go ahead and do it, even though it's going to be a significantly larger investment. By getting people further and further down the funnel, it increases the probability that they close. So once again, I hope that you were able to get as much value out of, this episode as I was. If you are not already subscribed, make sure you subscribe and go ahead and like this episode. And we'll see you guys on the next episode of the Coaching Uncovered podcast.